So if you want to know anything about St. Anthony, a really good place to start is a book written by his friend, St. Athanasius, the Apostolic, the one who was the pillar of faith and the patriarch who was responsible for defending the doctrine of the church, especially around the heresy of Arius. So St. Athanasius and St. Anthony, maybe you don't know, they lived at the same time, and they had a really good relationship. And so St. Athanasius wrote this marvelous book, The Life of Anthony. And you can actually find it online free as a PDF. It's about 85, 90 pages. Really encourage you to read. And a good proportion of that book is actually all about how St. Anthony was victorious over sin and victorious over Satan. And it wasn't like, oh, he just won. It was, like destroyed Satan. It was overwhelming victory, time and time and time again. So much so, actually, that you don't get the sense that St. Anthony was scared of Satan. In fact, he would mock Satan, and he just thought that Satan was absolutely nothing. And when he was teaching the many young men who followed him into the solitary life and life of monasticism, he would also encourage them to really have no respect whatsoever for Satan, for the opposition. So we're going to go through, by God's grace, 5 lessons from St. Anthony about how to have victory over sin. And I'll read for you some excerpts from the book written by St. Athanasius. And the first of those is prayer, and especially the Psalms. Now, St. Anthony's fight against Satan wasn't like ours, but often it was really tangible, really physical, hand-to-hand combat even. Unbelievable things. For example, St. Athanasius writes, he, referring to Satan, attacked the young man, disturbing him by night and harassing him by day, so that even the onlookers saw the struggle which was going on between them. And other times we read of Satan physically beating St. Anthony up so that he needed to be attended to for some time. And then St. Athanasius continues, Satan would suggest foul thoughts, and St. Anthony would counter them with prayers. So if prayers are strong enough to defend St. Anthony from physical hand-to-hand combat with Satan, combat which is so strong that even people walking past in the same neighborhood, they think, oh, gee, what's going on over there? How much more so can prayer give me victory in my struggle with Satan? The devil appeared to him on another occasion, and St. Anthony responded immediately with the Psalms. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can you do to me? So St. Anthony, he defended himself. He had victory over sin, over Satan, by prayer, and especially by praying the Psalms. And this is because he understood very well, St. Anthony, that we can't have a victory over sin alone. Do you know, sometimes, like, let's say you're struggling with watching things that are inappropriate online. And then you think, okay, yep, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a filter on my laptop, or I'm going to, make a promise to a friend, and, or I'm going to chuck my phone out the window. So while all those things are good and they're important, it's not enough to do those things on your own. You can never have victory over Satan by yourself. So Anthony taught us that. He could have said, I'm going to, escape. I'm going to, read. I'm going to, no, he prayed, he begged God for help. So don't think that if St. Anthony was unable to conquer sin on his own, do you think that you will or I will? Of course not. I can't have victory over sin by myself. It's not only the practical things. I must pray and beg God to help me and have mercy on me. St. Athanasius writes, for the Lord was working with Anthony, the Lord, who for our sake took flesh and gave the body victory over the devil, so that all who truly fight can say, not I, but the grace of God, which was with me. And in that passage there, St. Athanasius is referring to 1 Corinthians 15, which says, but by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain. but I labored more abundantly than they all. Yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. Yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. So the first lesson that we learn from St. Anthony about how to be victorious over sin is to beg the Lord for help and to pray especially the Psalms. The Lord is on my side, I will not fear. Now, just in case you're thinking, okay, no problem, so I have a trouble with swearing or with anger or with gluttony or with lust, so all I'm going to do is pray. Well, that's not what St. Anthony did. He didn't just pray. Although I can't do it alone and I need to depend on God, I also have to do something. And this is where we sort of talk about St. Anthony's asceticism. So asceticism is a word which means simply giving something up for the sake of God. And more specifically, giving up something which is not bad for the sake of God. So if you say, oh, I'm going to give up swearing for the sake of God, or I'm going to give up, rap music with lots of, inappropriate content, that's not ascetic. That's just fleeing from sin. But asceticism is giving up something which is okay. Like, for example, fasting. There's nothing wrong, with having ice cream. But asceticism means I give up something which is okay. There's nothing wrong with sleeping, but as some ascetic people will wake up early and pray. And so St. Anthony was incredibly ascetic, always, giving something up for the sake of God. St. Athanasius even says that at some stage, St. Anthony was even embarrassed to eat in front of the other monks. He was so focused on nourishing his soul that he found it embarrassing to nourish his body, which was necessary in front of the other monks. Wherefore, more and more he repressed the body and kept it in subjection, lest having conquered on one side, he should be dragged down on the other. He therefore accustomed himself to a severe mode of life. And one verse which St. Athanasius quotes in his book that St. Anthony lived by, but I discipline my body and I bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. Discipline my body, bring it into subjection. So although St. Anthony knew, understood that he could never have victory over sin on his own, and he was always begging and praying Psalms, at the same time, he did everything that he could. And he was very ascetic, disciplining his body, bringing it into subjection. Now, it's a bit difficult maybe to talk about asceticism during these days, the Holy 50 days. And I'll just share with you a conversation that I had with Amba Arason, the Bishop of Brazil. So His Grace, he's very kind, and he sent me a message on Easter, and I was embarrassed and replied and said, "Happy Easter, Sayedna." So while I have the bishop on the line, I said, let me ask for some advice. How do we keep our relationship with God strong and fiery, especially after Pascha week? Although Pascha week this year was a bit different online and things, we all really enjoyed it, and we all really felt like we were just having a week with God alone with no distractions. So how can we make sure that we don't drop off from that now during the Holy 50, especially when there's no fasting and there's no prostrations, and and he said something like really beneficial to me. He said, what you are doing during Pascha week, keep going. If you are reading, keep reading. If you are praying, keep praying. And he said, although there is no fasting and there's no abstinence, you still must have control over your body. He says, eat and enjoy the feast, but have control, so eat the meals. There's no need to eat until I'm absolutely full. There's no need to sleep excessively, eat so much that I'm drowsy and sleep unnecessarily long in the middle of the day. So you enjoy the feast, but I have to discipline my body, as St. Paul says, bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself have become disqualified, lest all of the benefit that I've gained over Pascha week and the Lent, I lose in a week or in a fortnight afterwards. Surely God doesn't want us to feast so that we can just lose whatever benefit we have just had. So St. Anthony prayed, and St. Anthony was ascetic. The third lesson that we learn from St. Anthony is that he never looked back. He never ever looked back. And whenever you hear that phrase, oh, don't look back, you automatically associate it with negative things, you know, so like you stuff up an exam and then you think, okay, no, don't look back. Hopefully I'll do better in the next one. Or, you know, you miss your 3-pointer. Not that I know what that feels like. And then you think, oh, okay, it's all right. I'm going to just don't look back. Let's get the next one. So you always associate that principle of not looking back with negative things. But St. Anthony, strangely, he had that principle about that, but also about the positive things. Don't look back, you know, because sometimes you think, oh, you know, I had such a good workout, so I'm just going to eat McDonald's. Don't look back. Keep going. Or I had such a good Passion Week, so I can relax now. Don't look back. Keep going. I had such a good prayer, such a good Bible reading, such a good service, such a good whatever, and then that makes us complacent and lazy. So St. Anthony never looked back, whether it was positive or negative. And there are 2 verses that St. Athanasius writes in the book that St. Anthony would live by. Firstly, Philippians 3:14. I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. I press toward the goal. I move forward toward the goal. I look forward, never back, towards the goal. And then interestingly, St. Athanasius writes a passage from 1 Kings that Elijah said, the prophet. Then Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts lives before whom I stand, I will surely present myself to him today. Elijah said, I will surely present myself to him today. For he observed that in saying today, the prophet did not compute the time that had gone by, but daily, as though ever commencing, he eagerly endeavored to make himself fit to appear before God, being pure in heart, ever ready to submit to his counsel and to him alone. So St. Anthony never looked back. He never looked back and, you know, maybe remembered a mistake and regretted it, but he also never looked back and said, oh, I've done so much. He's always wakes up, I will surely present myself to him today. And for those of us who are struggling with repeated sins, this is a really common thing, right? Like when, especially for teenagers, like I go to Abuna, I confess that I swear, and then I want to stop, and I'm there a month later saying that I'm still swearing. And that might be true of many, many other sins. And I think, oh, what's the point of this? You know, I'm not really getting anywhere. I just remember St. Anthony. He never looked back. And his goal every morning was that I, Lord, will present myself to you today. Don't look back on the negative things. It'll stop me from and maybe lead me to despair. And also don't look back on the positive things, because it may prevent you from pressing towards that goal for the prize, as we read in Philippians. So St. Anthony, he never looked back. So tomorrow morning, wake up, forget about today, and present yourself to the Lord, as a sweet aroma. The 4th thing is St. Anthony was so honest in his prayer. Sometimes when you see like the picture of a saint, or the icon of a saint in the church, you just imagine that like they were just perfect, and they, never doubted, and they never had a question, and they never had a concern, and they never, no problems. But when you read the Bible, for example, the Bible is never embarrassed to document the shortcomings of some of the heroes. The Bible was not embarrassed to talk about how Saul persecuted the church before he became St. Paul. The Bible was never embarrassed to talk about St. Peter, acting impulsively, chopping off the ear of the soldier in the garden, or denying Christ. So there's an amazing prayer that St. Anthony prayed in the midst of his hardship, which St. Athanasius records. And St. Anthony says to the Lord, and I'll paraphrase because some of the book that I read from is in Old English, so I'll paraphrase slightly. St. Anthony is praying, where were you, Lord? Why didn't you appear at the beginning to stop my pain? This was in the context of, a battle with the devil. And a voice came to him, the voice of the Lord, saying, Anthony, I was here, but I wanted to see you fight. Since you have endured, I will forever be a support to you, and will make your name known everywhere. Having heard this, Anthony arose and prayed, and received such strength that he perceived that he had more power than his body than formerly. And at that time he was 35 years old. Similarly, St. Paul, 3 times he says, Lord, lift this thorn in the flesh from me. And the Lord finally says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. So don't be shy to be honest in your prayer. God is your Father. Some people say, should I pray about this and should I pray about that? And I think God is your Father. So just say, Lord, I'm not sure if I should be praying about this or not. I'm embarrassed to be praying about this, but this is what's on my heart. If it's pleasing to you, let it be granted. If not, remove it from my heart. But don't try to come to the Lord honestly in prayer. Pour out your heart before him. Don't try to tell him what you think he wants to hear. We do that sometimes with our teachers or with our parents. We kind of answer the question based on what we think they want to hear. Be honest, be sincere in your prayer. The Lord, Anthony was so sincere, St. Anthony, so sincere. Where were you, Lord? Why didn't you come in the beginning and stop my pain? And look how the Lord answered him. So be honest in your prayer. And the fifth, it was very difficult to limit it to 5. It could have been 10 or even 15, but for the sake of time, the fifth is that St. Anthony looked to the scriptures for guidance always. When people would ask him a question, he would answer with a Bible verse. When he would encourage the monks who started to follow him and live as monks as well, he would always, his sermons were just half the Bible, more than half of it is the Bible, nothing from himself. He told the monks in one of the talks he gave them, the scriptures are enough for instruction, but it is a good thing to encourage one another in the faith and to stir up with words. So can you guys do that? Read the Bible. So Anthony says it's enough. If you have a question, if you need guidance, the scriptures are enough for instruction. But it's good to encourage each other and stir each other up with words. And that's part of the reason why we all benefit from hearing. We all benefit from hearing and being encouraged and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to go home, I'm going to do that, I'm going to try that. And one of the consequences of St. Anthony living his life guided by the scriptures is that he had no respect for the devil. Sometimes I was scared of the devil. Oh no, the devil is so strong. Oh, the devil, he made me do it. Oh, the devil, it's scary. Like St. Anthony, you just really get the sense that he, as I think Mark mentioned, the slam dunking. St. Anthony would slam dunk on the devil all day long and then step over him like Iverson. The script, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can YouTube it. This is disrespecting the devil. The scriptures are enough for instruction, but it is a good thing to encourage one another in the faith and to stir up with words. So St. Anthony would always remind the monks, behold, I have given you power to tread upon serpents and scorpions and upon over all the power of the enemy. In Luke chapter 10, verse 19. So the Lord has given us authority, and we pray this in the Thanksgiving prayer every day. So what am I scared of? The Lord has given us power to tread upon serpents and scorpions. He even observes that, that when the Lord removed the devil from a demon-possessed man, and it says, let us enter the swine. They asked the Lord, please give us permission to enter, leave this man and go into this field of swine, who then run off over the cliff. And St. Anthony observes, if the devils don't even have power over the swine, how much less do they have power over you and over me? He was never scared of them. And then whenever the devils would come to him in the form of, beasts or a woman, to entice him, or some scary noise or whatever, he would just mock them and say, if you actually had authority, if you actually had power, you wouldn't need to do all of this circus to get my attention. I'm paraphrasing. You wouldn't need all this circus. But because you have no power, this is what you need to do. So he really just had no respect for Satan, because he read the Bible and believed it and lived it. So if we want to have victory over sin, we learn a number of things from St. Anthony. Number 1, pray, and especially the Psalms. We cannot do it on our own. Number 2, asceticism. I have to have discipline. I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, and be guided by your confession, Father, about how to do that. Although we can't do it alone, doesn't mean that we do nothing. Thirdly, St. Anthony never looked back, neither on the good or the bad. Every day was a new day. As the Lord of hosts live, I will surely present myself to him today. Present yourself to the Lord faithful today. Don't worry about yesterday. The Lord wipes the slate clean. He removes my guilt. He removes my shame. St. Anthony was very honest in his prayer. Where were you, Lord? Why didn't you come at the beginning to make my pains cease? Be honest in your prayers with God. Don't think that you have to pray and tell God what he wants to hear. Pray and be honest and be respectful and just tell the Lord what is on your heart. He is our Father. He loves us so much. And finally, St. Anthony was always looking to the scriptures for guidance. The scriptures are enough for instruction, but it's good for us to encourage each other sometimes. And there are so many consequences which happen if we are living life guided by the scriptures. And one that really runs strongly in St. Anthony's life is absolutely no fear, no respect, no regard for Satan, because the Lord has given us victory. Thank you guys so much. I really hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and please pray for me.